Hello Hero, it's Lucy Lannon, back for another pick a card, esoteric tombola, psychic lucky dip, Marseille mini. This time choosing words beginning with the letter R from this lucky dip bin. If you want to add to these envelopes as the series goes through the alphabet, please feel free to comment with any word, even from a letter we've gone past, because we'll do this all around again. Just saying, you know, A is for antiquity, F is for friendship, whatever it is that you want to say. No real names, please, and no place names, just because we want to keep it as general as possible. But you are welcome to add to each bin. A couple of you in my private client group have put some into R, so we'll see today whether you get any of the words that you selected for us. And we'll be reading with this deck from 1650. But if you haven't been with us before and done this, there are 3 tarot piles, and then there are also 3 channeled piles, which last time we did ink divination in water, so check out Q is for if you think that's something you'd like to have a reading with. This time, because in my sort of general readings with the title headers that kind of give the game away, they've been very different this week. They've had a different quality to them, and there's been a lot of involvement from animals, birds, depending on which ones you've been drawn to, etc. I wanted to do something with birdseed. So instead of divining with sand or doing bone throwing or any of the other things that we can do, I've actually taken the stuff that I feed the robins, put it to one side, and we're going to do that on paper. So that will be your channeled reading component, or your kind of bit more out there divination segment, right? And if you can think of any other form of divination that you would like me to include in these Marseille specials, then please do hit me up down below. I'll read with whatever, my dudes. I'll do clouds, I'll do some crystal ball scrying. We've done stuff by touch, we've done stuff with candle flames. As I say, we've done ink in salt water. Whatever it is you would like to see. I also hope to do a hot chocolate series as the weather gets a bit cooler here, but currently I am on a medically restricted diet, so that will be a little bit of time just while I get my chocolate fix going again. Is there anything else I want to say? I'm here for Utober, doing at least 1 reading a day. There's been a bit of a gap because of some health issues, but that means that I'm now doing multiple readings a day. So if you're subscribed and you haven't hit the bell, please do so that you get notified of each reading, whether I have like 2 or 3 in a batch. And if you're not subscribed, but you like tarot, and particularly where you like tarot where you don't know what you're getting as you go in, or getting into, I suppose, then please do subscribe, hit like, hit me up in the comments with the sorts of readings you would like to see, and I will tailor some pick piles to you. But yeah, it's worth sticking around for the channel at the moment. If this is the first one of this type that you're seeing, highly recommend the playlist of the rest of the series, perhaps picking the letters of your name or just a random letter and seeing which pile you feel drawn to, or which piles should I say, because there's always 2. And with that said, I think that's about it. So let's just whiz through getting these other ones out. Okay, so in terms of your tarot picker piles, we're going to have pile 1, pile 2, and this will be pile 3. And then in terms of your readings with divining with birdseed, let's call it pile A, pile B, and pile C. You don't have to pick the same one. You can have a 1 and a C, or a 2 and an A, or whatever it is, but you do you. I'll give you a quick moment to look at the cards and decide, and then I'll see you in your pile. All right. So I'll put pile 1's tarot aside. We're going to start with pile A of divining with birdseed. This is the first time I've done this, and I don't know what's going to come up in your corresponding tarot. So let's just get an idea from whatever comes out here as to what might be going on for you, things that may confirm you're in the right space, all kinds of stuff. I should have put it in the intro, but if you have any aversion to seeing bits of grubs, this seed mix does have like dried grub in it. So I don't know why that would be a problem for most people, but if you have a fear or anything like that, I feel pulled to say perhaps this form of divination is not for you, and you need to go to the other Marseille minis in the playlist and just select one of the channel piles there. Okay, we've already started. I like the way this is kind of bouncing around. That's definitely making things easier from my perspective. All right, I feel that's enough. I'll wash my hands in a minute. Let's get all of these players back on the board, shall we? What can you tell me about pile A? Okay, so you've been exploring issues to do with the relationship between the way you see yourself and the way you see other people as being other or outside of you, perhaps doing self-concept work around kind of relating to others, what it is that you're drawn to in terms of relationships, breaking relationship patterns even. There's a sense of who you are in this versus who it is that you think everybody else is. And there is also like a recognition perhaps that in forming your own identity, you have sometimes projected outwards to other people the qualities that you think that you lack in a way that is a bit more adverse, and you're coming to grips with those kinds of patterns. So if that sounds like you, this is definitely your divination pile, because I'm seeing almost like the ascendant-descendant axis that you would get in astrology, but in the way that the seeds are scattered. Show me more on that. What do we need to know in terms of that? I think particularly in the area of your education or your like personal development, the sorts of people that you've been encountering are reflective of the kinds of values that you wish that you held, right? Or now, let me put this carefully. So it's not just that you're meeting people who hold values that reinforce yours and that are making you think more about your identity. It's not quite that simple. It could also be that you've been rubbing up directly against people who are the exact opposite of how you want to operate in the world. And that has taught you a new value system in recent times, particularly with regard to, I feel like that was a 7, even though I knocked it. So your intimate personal relationships or your ideas around intimacy, or what you consider intimacy to even be. Because for many of us, it is a different concept to sex, right? We use the word intimacy as a euphemism a lot of the time. But I also feel like there's something here about closeness that you did not acknowledge fully, even if you learned it in your early life. And now you're coming to an understanding from the reflections of other people you've attracted in back to you of what your value system should be around who you are intimate with, what intimacy means to you, around sexual intimacy and expression, perhaps, but more to the idea of when you operate one-on-one, somebody else has shown you that from now on you want to operate like this, fill in the blanks. Big general reading, large audience, should have said that at the very beginning. So take what resonates, leave the rest. This could particularly be pinging off in the area of your networks, but as it pertains to you on a much more personal level, so your closest friendships. I'm not seeing necessarily a relationship coming in teaching you this stuff. If it is that realm, it's more likely to be a friends with benefits or a situationship, because it's kind of in your friendship sector, but it's closer to the center, it's closer to you. There's also a concentration at the center of this reading, which I read as a kind of catalyzing force. There's a lot of changes going on. You might have a lot of transits going on at the moment. There's just stuff kind of accumulating in a way that's bringing a lot of clarity, whether that accumulation process feels bad or good to you, right? And it will be very much in either direction. It won't be in the in-between. It'll be like, I'm having a great time and all this is becoming clear because, or it'll be like, I'm having a terrible time, but man, is it bringing me an increased amount of clarity and catalyzing processes that I was already in. There's also a thing here. I'm noticing the sorts of seeds that the pigeons go for rather than the blue tits and the smaller birds that we have, because I feed all sorts, everything from jays to crows to, attempting to feed red kites at the moment. That's a little trickier. But there's certain things that different species jive with when I put them out. And one of the things that happens when I put these seeds out early in the morning is that I get a lot of attention from your robins, your chaffinches, your blue tits, that sort of thing. And then about mid-morning, some big blustering pigeon comes in, sweeps onto the area that I put these out on, knocks everybody out of the way, and sort of starts attacking certain bits of food. Now, what I'm reading that as in this first ever Birdseed reading, particularly because it's in your catalyzing central area, is that there are ideas coming through in this process, and I don't want you to fall into the trap of letting other people explain to you what they are or how you should feel about them, or indeed talking about them with other people where those people then go off and market that as their idea. There's a sense of some big fucking pigeon, excuse my language, coming into your world, knocking off all the smaller bird thought processes that you were having, quite happily eating and chatting and socializing in this area already, and just kind of claiming the seed of something which has settled in you. So whether this is, oh yeah, I've heard of some words to do with that concept, I'm now going to give you a really broad, generalized take on what it is I think about it and challenge your worldview with my thoughts. Or whether it's more in a moving outward way, where, like I say, you're sharing your thoughts in a very clarified, articulate fashion with somebody, and they're taking those concepts, perhaps even those words, and repeating them to other people as like, I had a wonderful thought the other day, and it was, and then they're repeating verbatim like what you came up with. And I feel that it's like one of the seeds here looks like a sword, and it's sort of pointing inwards in terms of you, and also into a more introverted space in terms of left-right. So this is like, if that has happened to you, or if it is happening, you're kind of turning the sword onto yourself in a way. You're blaming yourself for that happening, or you're feeling self-conscious about sharing stuff with that person and feeling like it's sort of maybe your fault in some way. I want to say that's not the case. And I think that whoever this is, by nature of who they are, like the species, the pigeon, right, they have... Firstly, pigeons are messengers, so they're very chatty, perhaps a little too chatty, but also they have a pattern of doing this with people where they kind of take something that someone else has told them, convince themselves even that it's their idea, and then kind of begin to spread it around as if they're, I want to say like font of all knowledge or font of wisdom or something like that, to sort of, it's not even consciously to seem impressive, but it's just because the idea has been ruminating after they had a conversation with you. They then sort of somehow have a pattern of telling themselves they came up with all of it, and spreading it around. And with the sword thing, it's like you went through a lot to get to that concept. For some of you, this is intellectual property as well, so you need to be very careful who you share early seeds of ideas with it being seeds. But there's something here about, if something is yours and there's been a very sort of an identity process or a complex way of going about forming certain ideas, which has taken a lot of strategy and a lot of work and a lot of application of effort, and then someone else is just kind of taking the best bits and running with it and spreading it to other people. What I want to tell you is that you absolutely have a right to say something. And with this kind of what looks like a hair here, which I think is bark or something accidentally mixed in, it's almost like the thread coming away from that situation is pointing to your house of shared resources. So there may be somebody who owes you a favour, or who you have shared money with at the moment in a living situation, or you have shared familial resources like inheritances or something with, and they are, believe it or not, the best person to talk to about this and about the kind of injustice of what's happened. And if that person happens to be the same person who's flown in like a pigeon and took your ideas, what I want to say is that it is time to communicate that back to them and say, hey, look, there are conversations that we share, but there are also components of those conversations that were from me and components that were from you. And I feel that you're kind of marketing the bit that was from me to other people. This may not matter much long term. If this is just in terms of an idea, a revelation you came to personally, it might not be that high risk a situation. You know, you might just be like, oh, well, you know, they're saying things that I said and saying they said it, but big shrug, you know, that clearly that person is in a lower or harder place than me if they have to do that. And it might not be that that sort of bigger thing. It might just be confirmation. But for those of you where this is an idea that you were going to monetize or put into a creative project, and now you feel that you can't do that because someone's kind of taken it from you and broadcast it before you could, I absolutely think that this needs to be a conversation, either with someone who can come in and help or with the person who's been barging in and kind of taking the best bits, right? What else? I'm seeing an H here, so that might be a significant letter. Also a G, and also a P. So again, large audience, but it might be confirmation for some of you. I also think E is significant because it's the only letter that's been covered over twice in this tweet that I wrote. Twitter may also be an area where this person is spreading their ideas. I know it's called X now, but you know what I mean. Or this person may be an X for some of you, that is sort of taking stuff and running with it, knowing that to out them doing that, you would have to out the fact that you had that conversation, and not everyone might be happy with it because they are an X. That's just for some. For some of you who've just moved to somewhere, or you're in some region now watching this that is very multicultural, there's a diverse range of experiences, perhaps ages in a neighbourhood. I feel like this is really good for you. I think it's kind of going to be something you draw upon later as a lucky time in your life. And I say that even if your catalysing stuff is really rough at the moment. I think that wherever you are, to the extent that it's quite cosmopolitan, I think that it's a useful environment to be in, and I think you'll look back with it with fondness, which I say partially because if that's not how you're feeling about it right now, know that it's something that you will come back to. For some of you also, particularly if you're not watching live, I'm seeing snow, I'm like hearing snow fall, which, yeah, it does make a sound, kind of. So that could be confirmation that you're watching this in the snow. Hit me up in the comments if that's the case. Or it could be something to do with the word snow, or what snow reminds you of, or an indication that if you've been waiting for something, it might happen when it snows, or when things feel a bit sort of Christmassy, because this is going out in October. There's also a Venusian element to this, because one of the seeds is reflecting in this light as particularly green. It looks like I've scattered birdseed, which mean nothing, but there's an emerald in their midst, right? So that makes me think of Venus, but with the emerald talismans being a Venusian thing. So this could relate to your love life if you've been waiting around for something or someone. There's something to do with snow here, or something significant about when you last saw them being to do with snow, or something to remember about the snow, something there with Venus and snow. If you're doing work with Venus, or you're exploring love magic or love themes, snow might be something to work with in a literal sense, where you collect it if you're in a part of the world that gets it, you know, leaving a jar out at night to snow in and then using that water for your workings. Or if you're not in a snowy place, either now or in general, this could be something about the colour white, or whatever snow represents to you. I mean, for me, it's quite innocent energy. It's, you know, pure as the driven snow, but it's also, it can be a sweeping of an innocence over a place in the sense of a blizzard. It can be a regaining of innocence culturally due to events in a sort of weather way, but also in a, like political weather is coming through as a kind of a mass regaining of innocence on a certain topic due to things in the sky that you can't see brewing, if that makes sense. And when I say sky, I mean in the political climate, the political landscape. I mean, I'm very conscious that I'm sending this out before 2024, and a lot is going to happen astrologically between the end of 2023 and the end of 2026 in a global sense, if you follow me. So there might be reference to the way that changes things, who knows, but this is a more personal reading and for you. So if you're not thinking about broader themes, There is something to do with love, with Venusian energy, for some of you Luciferian energy, which does link with Venus, and certainly snow and a regaining of innocence. I'm hearing Blank Space by Taylor Swift as well, so like blankness or returning to a kind of white paper, white sheet newness. And I'm not just saying that because this paper's white, but there are sort of snow-like seeds here. So there's the seed of something snowy, right? Let me know in the comments. For some it's even like the song, what's it called? The really naff snow song from the 90s, Informer. So there may be something about an informer, an informant. There may be something about being in this cosmopolitan environment where you feel a bit out of sorts, because I always think of snow as being incongruent with how he sounds, shall we say, and where that might mean that he's from. I don't want to be too offensive with that one, because, you know, a lot of people enjoyed him. But you know what I mean, right? There's a difference between him and how he made music, what he sounded like, between the identity of a Canadian white man in baggy hippie shirts versus the kinds of music that he used to do. So that may be relevant in some way, even if it's only to confirm something and make you laugh. I'm being pointed to a particular seed and told that's the last message, so I'm just going to have a look at their individual pattern. I feel like you're a bit on the fringes at the moment. I do sense that you have people that you can hang about with, places that you go on the regular, but there is a sense that you are, oh, the word I got was expunged, that's an interesting take, but there's a sense that you're removed from a community who operate quite frequently, certainly in the location that you're in, and I don't know whether that's a religious community or just a group of friends, or there's something where other people are gathering visibly to you and you're not part of that gathering, I want to say yet, or you've left that gathering, and you have your contacts and everything, but there's some feeling of removal because you're not in that. What do we want to say about it? I think that's because if you join up with this thing, or if you want to return to it or something like that, the people that you're around now while you're feeling a bit more misfit are actually the people you're going to want to take with you into that in some way. So, very broad example, and this won't apply to many of you, but if this is, for instance, a church and you're not part of it yet, or you don't know anybody, but you've made a few friends in a new place, or you've been there a while and you have existing friendships and you're kind of wondering whether to join up, there's something about the people that you are closest to that will come with you into that environment and make it even better for all concerned than it could have been if you went and joined up on your own and then kind of came back to your own friends or made new friends outside of that or whatever it is. So there's something about not going it alone, but having a bit more of a sporadic social existence for the moment, or having connections that don't necessarily make sense with each other in order to later join up with a bigger thing that you wanted to be part of. That's really resonant with a very recent reading that I did. So if you haven't, and this is hitting home, check out pile 2 of What Do You Need to Know Right Now, which went up a few days ago, okay? Or a few days before this on the channel. It'll be in the Utober playlist if you're seeing this anytime after October 2023. Anything else, guys? You may feel a bit split apart, split in two at the moment, but it will pass. They're telling me that it's a joining of separate elements by noticing the distinction between them and not a splitting of the mind or of the person or persona. It's not like you're living as two people. It's like you're in two minds and those will become one clear thought very soon. Hopefully illuminated by your tarot pile, okay? So if you're worried about feeling like you're wearing two hats or you're running in two directions, that's all going to come together in a coherent way. And actually it was very coherent to read this, even though it was a first time thing. So I do feel that, as I said at the beginning of this, clarity is a big theme for you. Will be really interesting to see what we get in tarot pile 1. but I'm going to do another one of these readings first, I think. So say goodbye to your seeds. I'm going to return them to the pot to be put out for the birds tomorrow. If you want to say a quick thank you to Spirit for this reading and put that energy in, then I'm sure it will be received back into nature where I live. And if that was useful, I hope you stick around for a tarot reading as well, or that you check out the rest of the stuff on the channel. Please hit like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly. I am a small channel, I would like to grow rapidly. I do this for a living, but not in a global online way. So if you could possibly be part of the group that sets me off on YouTube, I would love that. Please share wherever you can. All right, take care, Pile A. Pile 1, R is for... Dun, 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 dun. Is this the one? Yeah. R is for responsibility. Okay. And we are working with the number 8, or the 8th house, which is interesting if you also picked reading A with the birdseed. Okay. If you didn't, you might want to check that one out as well. I don't know what's going to come up in this tarot reading, but certainly shared resources and 8th house kind of stuff definitely came up in your non-tarot portion, or in the corresponding portion, should I say, because it might not be yours. Let's have a look what we've got in our Marseille. Bum, 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 bum. Feeling very musical. You might have just been listening to music, or you might have music on while you're listening to me, you know, separate tabs, etc. If you do, let me know in the comments what you're listening to. I love to find new stuff, so that'd be really cool. Okay. So Page of Pentacles reversed, a 8 of Swords, a 10 of Swords reversed, a 10 of Pentacles, and a, what are you? Are you Temperance? Yeah, you are. A Temperance reversed underneath. I'm just going to meditate on these. There will be a quick cut. You won't feel a thing. Right, guys, I want to say that this is a financial reading, but when I say that, I don't want to rule a bunch of you out, because money is kind of energy, right? The way that we respond to energetic flow, the way that we respond to things coming in for us, going out from us, from our resources, which is very 8th house, and the things that we can draw upon versus what it is that we're putting out creatively into the world or acting upon or with. These things are all very tied up with analogies about money. So if you don't resonate immediately that you need a financial reading, take what it is that I'm about to say and apply it in terms of giving, receiving, where you're putting energy in and investing in that sense versus where you're getting it out. My feeling is that you, or possibly another person around you, I would say probably a youngish male figure, had a responsibility to do something. Again, I want to say financially, but it's not for all of you, in terms of passing on money that is to do with some kind of legacy trust. So a fund that is like, sorry, seeds everywhere with this reading. That actually, the seed could have been significant. So this could be money from a business that you are owed, right? But you haven't been able to have it back. I'm not getting really taxes. I'm getting more stuff that's put into a business by people you know. Or it could be a trust fund, a charitable fund. It could be stuff to do with an inheritance, or money that has been repaid to you because you've given that energy back, or given that energy away, should I say. And that can be either in the sense that you offered a service to someone, or that you literally lent them money and they owe you money. But whoever this is that's sort of wanting to pay back this stuff, or has a responsibility, should I say, because it's not that they do want to. Whoever it is that has a responsibility to pay you back, or to send this money in the right direction in some way, or oversee it, they're quite, I don't want to be harsh if this is you, but there's a financial and emotional immaturity to this person. And I don't think they see the full scope of their responsibility to the situation. Now, wherever you are on this, whether you're this person or the recipient or someone who's a bystander in the whole process, in the terms of like, you know, if it's like a family legacy thing or something, I think in your recent past, this is less you feeling very trapped. I think you've gone through a period of feeling like a victim because of whatever's gone on, of feeling like you can't manage either energetically or financially, and that nobody's kind of helping you out. There may also have been a feeling of being stabbed in the back with this Ten of Swords coming up, because whatever deck it's in, that's one of the vibes I get from it, right? And certainly with Two Swords cards coming up in this era of a deck, and this, you know, with the deck being French and from 1650, what I'm getting is that there is a martial element or an element of defense in this. So this is either that there is money pertaining to defense, you might be owed something as a veteran or something, or this is you feeling incredibly defensive about this process of who is owed what and whose responsibility it is to see that the right energy, the right money, the right actions get into the right hands. I don't know why it is particularly, it's not within the scope of this reading as to why you feel responsible for this process in some way, or that you are like compelled to watch it if it's playing out with two people that you know. But there is, to some degree, there is a feeling that this has drained you of your energy and resources, perhaps even your money, particularly in the case of this being someone who hasn't paid you back, right? And they do have a responsibility to do this. It's not, if this is you and you're debating like, is it that important though? This is your wake-up call to say, no, please act responsibly. Please do take responsibility, because whatever this is important not just now, but in the next few stages of something else, right? This is the final step to completion in a process which needs money or that particular action or energy to get off the ground. So if this is you not wanting to give in terms of the energetics we discussed, then be aware that that will inhibit your ability to receive, even in other arenas, right? And if instead this is someone outside of you, and I think for many of you it's someone else, know that the longer they defer responsibility and kind of run away from, oh, I need to pay so-and-so back, or I need to make sure that the right amount gets to the right people instead of what it is that benefits whoever, the longer that's held back, the worse things will be for this person in a kind of, it's a misuse of the term, but a kind of karmic retribution sense, right? There is a larger consequence for not being responsible with what is in the end a shared resource, right? Because money, even if somebody owns it, is globally speaking a shared thing, right? So if it isn't put into the correct channels and it causes strife in that process, whoever holds that up will be dealt with in terms of how much they're allowed to receive, or even if they're hoarding or anything like that, how much pleasure they're allowed to get from what it is that they've already accumulated. So that could be an interesting thing. I do feel if it's you that's been struggling with money and someone owes you, or you're owed something from an endeavour or a family thing, or literally from your work, and it's delayed by PayPal fees, whatever it is, right? I don't want to say that and invite, I'm not saying anything about PayPal there, I'm just, it's an example. But if that is you and you've been struggling with money and therefore kind of emotionally and intellectually struggling because you have trouble with someone else not stepping up and not taking responsibility and the injustice of that, what I want to say is that bear in mind this is the final stage in a process you will leave behind and a new cycle you will begin, because it's a 10, and 10s are very abundant, right? Particularly with the Pentacles. The 10 of Pentacles is very much about, I've completed this stage and now I'm settled enough in what I have and what I can receive and what I can be glad of and appreciate to the point where I can start again completely from scratch in a positive way and, begin new endeavors, knowing that I will be safe, knowing that I will have security, knowing that I'm okay. So for many of you, this is an indicator that this will be repaid near future, right? Because that's the position of the card. And if it's not that you're awaiting payment, but this is just reflective of recent circumstance, know that the extent to which someone was irresponsible about this, as I say, is the extent to which they may struggle. For some of you, what I'm hearing is, if someone's held back from paying you back money, and now you have money or something energetically equivalent, be careful of this person coming in again and saying, hey, now I'm struggling, will you help me out? And I know that seems rich, right? Again, another R word, another money word. It does seem a bit rich. It's a bit sort of, are you joking? But be prepared for that to come in, right? This is just some of you, and you'll know if this is a dynamic that usually sort of deals in that kind of a way, where, you've been very giving, you've gone without, and then finally, as soon as you kind of get what's yours, the person who perhaps held you back from that is the first person to come in and say, I'm a bit hard up, could you help me out? I want to say this isn't coming from spirit, this is coming from me personally, but with all responsibilities and factors considered, feel free to tell them to fuck off. Right? But again, that's not a message from anything I'm channeling, that was just my take on how this feels. With the temperance in reverse sort of being the undercurrent to anything, there is a feeling that this overall circumstance has knocked you off balance, that there's a great injustice to it, that there's perhaps a discrepancy between the ways that you normally emotionally self-regulate and the ways that you normally materially behave. So I'm not just saying sort of bad habits because you've been in a tricky emotional space or anything like that. I'm saying emotions may have entirely taken over and prevented you from your material stuff on a certain day, or material stuff may have been so compelling because of avoiding the emotional stuff that you spent longer on a project or in a place or on a person or a thing than you normally would, particularly because in this temperance she's holding a wand, which speaks to me of impulsivity, and the sort of one cup pouring into another imagery is not balanced in this version of temperance, and the angel is in the reverse. So some of you are finding this because you felt a bit sort of, I want to say you felt a bit left out there or rejected by God or by whatever it is that you see as, spiritually running through everything, because you were asking for this to be helped and sorted out and feeling like there wasn't a result. And that's what's put you out of balance, so that physical circumstances it's easy for physical stuff to get hard when we already feel a kind of lack of faith that we're not normally in the mode of. And what I want to say, if that's you, and what Spirit particularly want to communicate, because they do have your back, is that a delay in things is not doing the job, and that things have happened at the right time, and that will all become kind of apparent. What I'm actually getting is, and I hope I'm all right to say this, but if somebody was actively preventing you from getting what's yours, and that's delayed you to a point where you're in a tricky situation in whatever practical sense, I feel that this is delayed to the point where either your life is going to go so well because of when everything activated and you were set on your journey again with this 10, that puts them in an iffy position, or a position of envy, or repercussions felt, right? Because they delayed you, you're in a better position, right? Particularly if they financially delayed you. And man, if this isn't echoing for something that went on with me, right? And taking a particular class at a particular time because someone held back money, and then finding out actually I was with the perfect people to be around, etc. There's something like that, which is why I use that example. And if it's not that, and if this person is kind of doing fine and you still feel a bit stuck, what I want to say is bear in mind that this will arrive at the right time for you, for them to feel that actually they took from you, but you have 10 pentacles and they are left with 1. And it's because they took from you. There is a sense of cosmic repercussion, which I sometimes like to avoid talking about on this channel because it can get a bit shady, particularly on YouTube. There's a lot of people discussing it in a way that's not very spiritual, but you know, the angel was in reverse, in delay, but it wasn't absent from the situation. And because this is the undercurrent of the whole reading, right? The rainbow over the reading, the channel running under the ground. This underground situation with this outside help, a kind of metaphorical Four of Cups, if you will, is that it was always meant to happen, that it was delayed for this long, not to make you suffer, but to make sure that whoever was holding back from you gets what's coming, right? And learns that lesson. And in the same way that it was their responsibility to give back to you what was yours, it is your spiritual responsibility to understand that actually it's not so bad that you struggled for a time, because you're going to be all right. What's the bigger issue here is that they get to a point where they can learn their lesson, and it's your spiritual responsibility to accept that being the process, and to understand that that's why you held up, and that nobody left you, nobody abandoned you. I'm hearing particularly from like relevant guides, it's not that we weren't there, it's that we kept you going just long enough for other stuff that's bigger than you to click off with this person or with this situation. If you are holding money back or resources back from someone, know that this reading is acting as your warning that the longer that happens, the more serious this lesson will be for you. You do have a responsibility here, and I am obligated to impart that, even if it's uncomfortable. So let me know in the comments how that hit. I do hope it was useful to you. Please click like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly. I'm a small channel, I'd like to get big. I do read tarot for a living, but I would like to do so solely online at some point so that I can reach a global audience. If you'd like to be part of that mission, that process, the best thing that you can do, my dude, is to subscribe and to share all of my readings with any friends that you think would enjoy them. We've got more Lucky Dip stuff here. We've got love readings, readings with stuff in the header that tells you what you're going to get, readings that are completely blind for both of us, and divination with all kinds of stuff, not just cards, not just birdseed, but, you know, ink, candles, hands, all kinds of things. So do take a good look around the playlists, and I hope to see you again soon. All right, pile B. I've not yet done your tarot pile, so this will be an exciting confirmation setup possibly for what you get later on. Certainly with pile 1, there were themes that ran through, I think, or A and 1 if you pick those together. But if you are choosing different piles for different things, that's all right too. I'm excited to know what you get, so let me know in the comments how one relates to the other. I don't know whether I said in the intro, we are reading with Birdseed today. It does include the odd grub or two, and that's because, well, firstly because I like to divine with new things and I've never used Birdseed before, and secondly because in my readings for Utopia, which is when I'm filming this, we've had a lot of interaction from the local birds in terms of things turning up at the window, rapping on the window, staring at me for a long time while I'm reading, in a way that has given us feedback. So I feel like I've bought a big bag of birdseed to say thank you to all the messengers there. And what I want to do is divine for you. Have you put any thoughts, intentions, thank yous that you want to send into these lovely seeds? And once I return them into the communal pot for all piles, they will be given to all kinds of birds in the morning tomorrow, sent back to the earth with all of our gratitudes, right? So hopefully that vibes with you just as it vibed with me when I thought of it. Right, I'm going to take a sip of this and just take this in. I love a peppermint tea. You might as well. That might be confirmation for this pile. All right, what we're getting. Firstly, there's a lot more mess on the table than in piles before, right? So you may have come from a tarot pile where I picked up a seed or two, and it's confirmation that you're in the right place for this. Or if you're coming to this first, there's a sense of gathering things into yourself, gathering thoughts, resources, kind of picking up things and putting them in one place. You may literally be tidying as you listen to me, right? Gathering, folding, putting things in their relevant boxes. There's a sense of taking a broad net and consolidating it into a neater assortment of things or ideas, even at different stages, because I'm still going back to pick seeds out, right? So yeah, that might be something you're going through. That's your confirmation if this is your pile. What I also want to say is that, because I forgot to say the grub thing until we were already out, with there being a grub here and it being sort of in placement between what would be first and second house on a wheel, there's someone near you that's doing something that you consider to be abhorrent, disgusting, revolting, beneath you in a very literal way, with this being like an earthworm type thing. But what I want to say is it's in their value system, sure, but it's not that far from something you've also done or been or thought. So if you are coming to this to talk about that person or to ask about something related to that issue, I think, you know, again, it relates back to the divination for power 1 in this sense, because it's like something that is seen by you in another is almost reflective of something in the self. And to a greater extent in this reading, something that you are finding revolting, I'm hearing, in someone else's behaviour is actually not that far from your own, and there needs to be an adult examination of that, and perhaps a space for compassion where we're sort of saying, okay, so I wouldn't act like this, but do I sometimes think in the same way that would lead to those kinds of actions in a different kind of person, right? So if someone is doing something a bit gross or a bit shady from, for example, a space of fear, where can you understand that person's energy and send them love and sort of forgive them a bit by thinking about where you hold the same fears, you just act in a different way. It's like the behaviour is almost irrelevant because the principle of the thing is something that you share, and this is why this person's in your life. It's interesting to me that in Tweet Pile 1 or Pile A, we had like an ascendant descendant looking axis where it was about what we project into the outside world and experience back, and how people reflect our self-concept and are drawn into our lives to show us something about the way we're operating. And it's not quite the same message with you, but it's on a similar sort of wavelength, isn't it? That like somebody that you're interacting with in a way where you're like, ugh, that's disgusting, I could never do that, or this is revolting behaviour, or this is abhorrent, or this person is wrong and terrible. Their behaviour may be very different from yours, but their motivation behind that behaviour, I think, is something where you actually have a kinship. So if you're seeking compassion, that's where you're going to find it. If you're not seeking compassion and you just wanted me to talk shit about what this person's doing, then I'm sorry, but this is your kind of ethical wake-up call to perhaps understand even if you can't forgive, right? So that's your first message. Sorry, it came in pretty heavy. Just readjusting. And I knocked, I don't know whether you saw that, but I knocked one of the seeds with my breath as I sort of settled into a new position. And I'm now scratching my nose, which is about breath as well. So there's something here about, as you readjust to something, events will click slightly differently and readjust to you. What I'm seeing is like your movements turn the cog slightly and then the whole thing changes ever so slightly to accommodate you breathing in and out. And this may be in a literal sense for some of you if you meditate, like the insights that you're going to get on that level are going to mean that your circumstances click slightly differently, almost imperceptibly, to rearrange themselves around that new understanding. And if it's not a meditation thing, what I want to say is that if you're in a period of readjustment, resettling, even practical tidying, as mentioned, stuff about your environment that may not look like it all fits in now is going to slightly accommodate whatever those changes are. So it's important, I'm hearing, to kind of go in with, it's a dangerous phrase, but blind faith to this particular process of readjustment, because at the moment I don't think you believe that your eventual world is going to fit in with the stuff that you're thinking about, realizing, coming to terms with, seeing in other people, etc. But actually, I think it's that very realization, it's moving again, that very realization, that very adjustment, which will shift your circumstances in ways that you can't do from a place of control or a level of trying to like fix circumstance, right? It has to be an internal adjustment, and then things will be given kind of cosmic permission to click slightly. This may not be something that anyone else notices, but I think if this message is resonating for you, you will know what I mean kind of as it happens, and you'll go, yeah, that did click in a really weird way and it did fit back in, and I would never have put those things together. So there's something about that. I think if you were wondering at all, you are very well taken care of, and I think in the broader sense, what looks like a very incoherent picture for you is actually going to have not a massive clarity like we had in Pile A, but certainly a little bit of confirming coherence as it moves forward. So the general circumstance may not fix itself, but something that someone says will fix something in you, or some minor detail will readjust to make it easier to do this thing on a Wednesday, or whatever it is, right? There's going to be just that click of the cog because of what you've done at your end. And I think this is partly why other people can't see it happening, because you know what you're doing. You know what it is that's your way of affecting change in a non-physical fashion. So yes, I'm talking to my magic users, my law of attraction people, but also just in a broader sense of shifting your awareness of a concept to a thing. That's what's going to get things to click, right? And then you can move forward with slight readjustment, with slight improved energy levels, is what I'm hearing. My stomach's rumbling and I'm seeing the face of an older man in what looks like, I don't want to set anyone off, but like clown makeup or stage makeup or something like that, that's run down his face with rain or with laughter. Those two things together make me think that there is someone around you, either presently or, you know, in a more wavy gravy kind of a way, who is a guy on the skinnier side, who may have been involved in theatre, clowning, putting on a show in some way, even if that's sort of being the epicenter of a family unit and being the person to host and be extra gregarious, bombastic, etc. Okay, what is it about that person that you need to know? I'm seeing objects in their house. I'm seeing like, I don't like this for obvious reasons, but there's like an ivory elephant and then there's like carved things. They make me think of the game pieces from Jumanji as well. So if this person was a gamer, or had a lot of board games, or like ran, for some of you it's someone who runs a D&D group, and they look a little, movement and confirmation, they look a little older than you, and they wear maybe like eye makeup, or they do sort of clownish stuff. They are the Joker of the group, which is why the clown face. There's something about the objects around that person or the game pieces that is significant. I'm now seeing wings, but like, they're almost like bat wings. They're like reptilian wings, not bird wings. So it's not related to the seed. Can you expand for me on what that is then? Yeah, okay. So there is a coldness to this person, right? Reptiles and I know bats are mammals, but things with sort of scaly wings that are like the wings that I'm seeing, a bit more sort of raggedy looking, a bit more fantasy based, which is again why I say D&D. Those kinds of life forms have to warm themselves up externally to be able to be warm. So there may be something about this person, excuse me, my nose is really itching, that's confirmation that I haven't had before. There's something about this person needing the warmth of others to feel warm. I'm not calling them cold-blooded, but I'm saying the way that they operate functions better with the warmth of other people coming in, and that might be why they are a clown or working in theatre or a dungeon master or whatever it is for you. Broad audience, big reading, take what resonates, leave the rest, right? But there's something about this person's theatricality that is conducive to the process of taking in other people's warmth in order to warm themselves. And I'm getting a compassionate feeling with that. It's not like a feeling of needing supply or something like that. It's much more like this is where they come to be warm, and that's something to be aware of. There's also a sense with it being winged imagery that whether or not you find them to be colder in some instances, or perhaps a bit removed in the way that they communicate from what you would call warmth, they are a person who has helped you to take flight in some way, right? They've helped you spread your wings. And that's why they're coming through, or that's why the idea of them is coming up. Because there's something you have to be compassionate about in terms of where this other person gets their energy, their warmth, their feelings of love and appreciation from groups, right, involved in this kind of clownishness or theatrical behaviour or even gaming together. But there's also an extent to which you may have found them difficult, even just in a minor way before, because of their communication style, and actually they have still been someone who helped you to fly, which is quite an appropriate message for a birdseed reading, I think. There's also like a twinkle in the eye of the face that I'm seeing, so there's like a knowing glint in a way that they're like, they know that they're doing that for you, even as they might come across in ways that you wouldn't choose. That's interesting. Let me know in the comments who that is. I'd love to know, particularly if I'm on it with the D&D thing or any of the gaming stuff. That'd be really cool confirmation for me to know that that's what came up for you. If you feel comfortable, obviously you don't have to. What else have we got? That moved again, so I'm hearing for some of you the readjustment may happen in issues around this person, right? That might be where stuff has to click in. Or it might be that something involving them is the ingredient to set the cogs in motion. If you're looking to manifest a certain result, begin a certain process, even I'm hearing get into contact with a certain person, that's where you start. That's important for some of you. Let me know in the comments. All right, what else? Talking about warmth and coolness, a lot of the warm colours in these seeds are coming out to me. So I don't know whether you're wearing warm colours, painting warm colours. There's something about warmth. If you're doing colour analysis, I'm told to look to the warm end of stuff to clarify something, even if you are not warm toned, because there's something about it. I'm also pulled to say, as a colour person, we put a lot on undertone, right? Are you warm? Are you cool? If that's not the most obvious component of your particular category, then you might think that the whole process is bollocks, but you're being asked to look at it again, because sometimes dominant brightness or mutedness is more important, or sometimes dominant dark or light values are the more dominant factors, and then you can kind of be both, which I'm saying to some of you as a literal colour analysis pointer that you're getting in your reading, and I'm saying to others of you as a more of a metaphor, right? It's not the factor you've been looking to, is it this or this? It's actually something else that is a characteristic of this situation, which will bring it to light what you're dealing with, right? So for some of you, it's hue and sort of level of saturation. For some of you, it's value, dark, light. There may be something around how bright you feel, how dark or light you feel around certain people or in a certain scenario or whatever. For some of you, I'm hearing since a certain thing happened. And it's not about whether you're being warm or cool, whether you're being inviting or not, it's about those things. It's about the darkness or the light. It's about the brightness or the subtlety. I'm enjoying these messages. Let me know if anything hits. I've no clue how that will relate for everybody, but I'm excited to know. And if you're on a colour analysis journey, I do colour readings in my shop. Not in a colour analysis perspective yet, because I've yet to qualify, but certainly from working with the energetics of colour in a much broader way than most people do, because I have that sort of colour awareness in a more nuanced sense, right? Currently studying with Jen Vax on that, actually, on the Colour Mastery course, and that's really helpful spiritually. Also, there is a Spectrum playlist, if you're new to the channel, of readings that are tarot about themes to do with colour, so that might be something you want to follow up with if you've got a specific question and it's not answered here. For some of you, I'm seeing mountains, or like, is that not mountains, it's like cliff face. It's a bit like the thing that he climbs in The Princess Bride, if you've seen that. But it's just sort of rocky coastal stuff. Now, why is that coming up? It's to do with the silhouette of the rock against something. So presumably against the sky, but why? For some of you are painting something like that. And I'm closing my eyes because I'm told I'm going to get vision. Wait a sec. It takes a minute sometimes. So what I'm seeing is this rocky outcrop type situation as described, but it's against a sky that isn't a normal sky colour, and it's the rocks in silhouette look a different colour to rock. So for some, the colour stuff is hitting, but it's like, think of things in different combinations, because this is a very weird colour scheme for what I'm describing. For others, what it makes me think of is like heavy metal movie, or like Mobius strips, or Heavy Metal the magazine, and how colour was combined in those places. So if you're an artist, look into those things, but if you're not, it's like the sky is the wrong colour, or the ground is the wrong colour, or there's something like, right, it's your perception of things has shifted, and things may feel a bit ambiently wrong. Like you're looking outside and everything's normal, but the sky is bright red instead of blue, or the silhouette of a rock face is like purple instead of a cool grey in the daylight, or whatever. And there's that sense of unease or uncanny with it. It's almost like, now I'm seeing the sequence in 2001 where he's sort of moving over rock at rapid speeds and they're all in weird colours. It's that feeling of like, this isn't right. So I think in a broader way, I'm speaking to a feeling of the uncanny that this group might be experiencing. And what I'm being told is that this is to do with a shift in your perception, not to do with things actually being wrong or broken, or there's not weird energetic stuff afoot. If you were thinking that there's like dodgy energies coming in, or you've woke up in the wrong way, or there's like a weird feeling after a dream, it's actually not that. It's that your perception, your paradigmatic framing even, is shifting ever so slightly, and that process of shifting can be quite uncomfortable. If you resonate with that, there is a recent spirituality reading, again in the Utoba playlist. Now, am I going to remember the title? Oh, that's weird actually, because for pile A of this Birdseed reading, pile 2 of that reading came up, but for this Birdseed reading, pile 1 of that reading came up, and it's the What Do You Need to Know that I recently publicised, particularly where it pertains to additional gifts coming in, or to a new awareness of circumstance. So that may be really helpful. I'll link it in the comments if I remember. See, now the things that were warm, they've all turned pink. It's gone like a completely different colour. And I'm hearing, that's a horse of a different colour. Wizard of Oz may be relevant for some of you, but for others, that's just a confirmation that like I was on it with that. The letter W may be relevant, the letter O. And I'm seeing like a sort of an O that's not fully looped. So it's like graphology is coming into this, or handwriting, or something to do with your writing or mine. That may be significant in some way for some of you, let me know. You may also be dealing with a person whose name, middle name or last, begins with, what is that? Oh, it's not in English, that's why. I'm like, why can't I recognise that letter? Is it stroke brain? Is it like, you know, because I've had weird stuff go on, so sometimes I don't see things the same way, but actually it's this symbol here. So it's kind of a diagonal thing going off in that way, and then there's a bucket shape here, and then there's a line here like a flick. I'm saying it could be Japanese, but I'm not familiar enough with Japanese to tell you the truth on that. It's just boom, 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 and a flick. And if you know what language that's in, even if it's a conlang or something, let me know in the comments, because it's really interesting that I'm getting a letter that isn't in English, because I speak, I'm here in Fifth Element, I speak 2 languages, English and Bad English, but I speak a bit of 2 other languages, which I'm not going to go into here, partly because someone watching will think I'm a freak, for a long series of reasons that it's not relevant to share. Yeah, that is weird. Yeah, I think it's in Japanese, but you tell me, right? So bum, 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 and a flick there. Okay. Anything else, guys? No, that's it for this pile. So if that was useful to you, please stick around for a tarot pile as well. It'll be cool to see whether they line up in terms of what they're relevant to. And as I say, hit me up in the comments if they do align. If you were going to put energy into this for the birds, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to do that now. Say what you need to say. Thank you kindly. That will go out to the robins in the morning. And I hope to see you either elsewhere on the channel or in one of the tarot piles. And I'm going to get on with the tarot reading for pile 2. Pile 2. Ooh. Spilling out already. You're keen to go, aren't you? Or you may have just spilled something, or if you followed on from the Birdseed divination for this, you may have just dropped something if you were tidying. That'd be pretty funny. Let me know. Excuse me. Hiccups, so that is right for some of you, because that's my confirmation sign. Let me know in the comments if that was you. I'd love to know. That'd be pretty funny. Right. R is for... Oh. R is for refuge. Okay. And we're dealing with the number. Can't see what that is. 7. So this is likely to pertain to relationships in some way, but if you're not here for a relationship reading, or that doesn't make sense yet, all will become clear when we pick from the Marseille. I'm picking from the back in a straightforward way, so already we're clearing up that energy of dropping things, right? And now from the front, and we've got one more. Who wants to play? Is it you? Yeah. All right, let's put these to one side. There's also an unveiling of something that's about to happen, because I didn't lay the cards out and then overturn them in the same way in the last group. So that tells me that there's like a hidden thing, and then it's going to be like, ta-da! So that is extra info. We have a Chariot reversed, a Page of Cups, which I always get confused with the 2 of Cups in this deck, a come on brain, a 6 of Pentacles, sorry, it's very late over here and I do have a brain injury, a High Priestess and a Death card. Don't panic, all is well. I'm just going to meditate on these and get what this refuge bit is, and then we'll come back after a quick cut, which you won't feel. Right, gang, I do apologise. I was a little off in saying that it would probably be relationship related with the 7th, because actually, as this has unfolded, it's become clear it's much more about that being a context for something else happening. So this is a general reading for a large audience. Please take what resonates and ditch the rest. it will be useful in some way, right? There'll be some part of it you need. There are a few scenarios that I'm getting, but they're relatively related. This word refuge, I instantly got kind of a panicky feeling because it can be a literal refuge, right? And the words I was hearing was women's refuge. You could be a refugee, you could belong to a family of refugees, or you could be in close contact with people who have the situation I'm about to describe. I feel that there was a period of unease, stagnancy, tension, no movement, which was in a way worse than a period of movement. And I say that in relation to both major and minor conflicts. So if you resonate with being a refugee or with taking in refugees or something like that, this could be in terms of a global conflict where hostilities have ceased for a time, but actually that period where the movement stops, and I'm hearing where the music stops, it's like musical chairs, right? Could be worse in a way for the sort of common man or for the people affected by this conflict. I mean, it's pretty pertinent when this comes out, because there's something big going on in the world right now in terms of the Palestinian conflict. I don't know whether it pertains to that. I don't know how that's going to go. That's not within the scope of this reading to decide, nor do I feel it's ethically a good thing for me to look into it on the channel. But it could be a situation as big as that, is what I'm saying. And with it being the pass the parcel analogy that came into my head, the musical chairs even, it could be that when the music stops, it's worse than the conflict because there are only so many spots with something and people are trying to take resources in some way or fill a certain gap in some fashion. That means that they have to act in an underhanded way, or people are getting to power in a way where they were never meant to have that seat, right? So musical chairs is a good analogy in terms of like, when it stops, that's when the chaos happens. And I think whether it's a really personal circumstance to you or a broader conflict, there is an extent to which this Chariot card embodies that. If it's more personal, you could have sought refuge from a situation, getting for many of you from a person, with this being 7th house, from an intimate relationship perhaps. But whoever it is that's running away from something, even if it's you and you, there is a sense of somebody young and imaginative, perhaps a child or a vulnerable person, being involved in this, recent past, or kind of as you're coming to me for this. That person or that inner person, if it's an inner child thing, needs to be protected, and that you or whoever this pertains to have sought refuge from the musical chairs situation with a child, guarding a child, or in some way doing work with the inner child, if this is you leaving a relationship or leaving a position within which you had a great deal of intimacy with another person, not just sexual, but like intimacy in the sense of being in close intimate quarters with someone, right? So this could equally, if you came from my recent family and home environment reading, it could be that you got pissed off with your housemates and you used to be close with them and you found refuge with another person that is quite childlike, or with your inner child because it got a bit much, right? So again, take it as you see fit. You can see how there are lots of different kind of passageways with this that you could go down, but it's something to do with all of that. For some of you, I'm hearing Eastern Europe as well. I don't know why that would be. This could maybe to do with the Ukrainian conflict. I don't know how things are going to go, my dudes. I'm not going to say it in these kinds of readings, but there's something to do with a refugee here in some sense, right? And with seeking refuge, seeking solace, seeking sanctuary, seeking a space away from a group, a community, a familial unit, a town, a birthplace, whatever, with a child or an inner child. Present tense, that is directly affecting finances in some way. whether it's because it's inhibiting creativity because you're between things, or whether it's that literally you have left everything behind, you have nothing, right? And again, broad audience. There is also a thing with this 6 to do with reciprocity, to do with give and take, to do with being given adequate resources. For some of you, I'm hearing you work for organisations like the UN or the Red Cross or something that provides aid to people who are seeking refuge. And this is why we're in a conversation about material resources relating to a child leaving this. And if that is you, I want to congratulate and commend you on the work that you do. And I've, in the past been someone who's raised money for those kinds of things because it is crucially important, particularly now, and particularly in a society which tends to be very individualistic, right? You may be someone who came to this tarot reading for a very you-based reading and not to talk about the problems of the world, but there is a sense of the wider world creeping into this reading in some way, even if we're talking about just you. So for those of you who are coming in from a job that is really related to that broad picture, I want to say thank you, right? And I feel I should before I move on. But yeah, there's some kind of, if not an insufficiency of resources, there's a pull to charity or to being charitable, to perhaps donating to refugees, if this is something that's touched your life or that you've been thinking about. If you booked with me for a how to help reading, I know that at least one of you has had this kind of stuff come up, so it might be to do with giving back through those kinds of means if you are in a place of financial equilibrium. And if not, like I say, this is a kind of energetic sense of I'm giving out here, but am I receiving? Or I'm receiving here, but am I giving out, right? Because that's equally important. And something that you learn magically, and that's particularly, this will hit for my, fellow students in something like Quarrier. If your giving and receiving isn't in balance, one blocks the other. So if there's something you've been asking for that isn't coming in, perhaps it's because you need to enter into that energy of generosity, charity, volunteering, or volunteering whatever it is that you're good at in your own way, in a more private way, to your fellow man in order to receive what it is that you've been asking for. Or if, again, flip side, you could have been giving and giving and giving and really sort of dragged down by this broader picture and really overwhelmed by what you're seeing and experiencing, in which case this card may indicate that it's your turn to seek refuge yourself and receive and sort of gain help. If you're having trouble with resources and you're seeking refuge, what I want my sort of collective to do, if you possibly can, is to put a link in the comments to whatever you know to be a local resource for you, be that, women's refuge, a charitable organisation, something that helps with any of this stuff where you are in the world. Because as I've expressed in other readings, if I put stuff that's relevant to where I am in the comments, for the vast majority of you, for when I upload and stuff, it's not going to hit home. It's not really relevant. I mean, I will try and do that, but what I would like from anybody who's in a position to give your knowledge is it takes 2 minutes to find a link and say, these are the local shelters where I'm based, or these are organisations that can take you in, or these are organisations I know that do good work in terms of places that are in political conflict, environmental conflict, people that have had to flee. So here you go, this could be something we all consider, or that you donate to, or that you turn to, and we can all help each other out in the comment section. I'm really pulled to say that because this is a more active 6 than it would be. This is literally about you and me giving and receiving right now. With the High Priestess coming out as a kind of semi-resolution to this, there is something unseen about all of these circumstances that is about to unfold, right? There is, even for me, acting as the High Priestess in this reading, giving you, confirmation or extra information, hopefully, there is something that I can't see the outcome of, which will kind of turn this on its head, I think, and will alter circumstances. And I think that in those terms, right now, it's a difficult energy to tell you without seeming sort of insufficient or trite. But really, we've been pushed to go into the centre of this reading again and talk about what it is that you can receive right now, deal with right now, give right now. And if you are in a place where you're seeking resources and they're not coming in, what I want to say is this reading might be your call to say, if you have a dependent, for instance, what is in the room with you right now that you can control? What food do you have? How can you, ration things? How can you draw upon resources that you definitely do have and take refuge in? Well, at least we're well fed today, or at least we have a roof over our heads today, or whatever it is. And I hope it's not too drastic, but again, I'm reading for a lot of people, so who knows? But there's a sense of like, focus your attention in on this giving, receiving kind of energy, which is perhaps why I had difficulty identifying it, right? I had a brain blip when we first pulled cards. That might be why it's like an emphasis on this card, because all these things tend to happen for a reason. The High Priestess as well is looking this way towards the figure of death. I don't read the death card as a death. And I'm certainly not telling you that someone is going to pass away, because I don't do that ethically. I just, it's not just something I wouldn't say on this channel, but it's something that Spirit wouldn't bring in for me to tell you, because it's unethical for me to give that to you, because, a diagnostic is a curse. And if I tell you someone near you would die, then it might, you might believe that reality and it might come about, and I don't want to do that. So be very careful with statements like that. This is not about someone about to pass away. But with the death card being here, I felt the pull actually in meditation to ask, is this a literal death? And I heard yes for some. So this could speak to coming from a place or a circumstance where there was a lot of death. And if that's you, my heart is with you. I will send energy into this after this reading to see you right, to kind of put you where you need to be. Just know that candles are being lit for you in cathedrals, probably miles away from where you are. But there is something that needs to be said around death being a present force in this kind of stuff. Even if it's not in a future sense, because this isn't the future, that's the future. So don't get afraid that this is coming up, right? Just because it's on this side. This is actually a card that signifies the undercurrent of the reading, the basis of this. If this is a more personal circumstance, like you've had a divorce and you've left with a child, or you've left with your inner child, you've left a partner behind, even if you weren't official, you've left a workplace because it was stagnant, there was a musical chairs thing going on, you didn't like it, whatever it is that you've left behind, this death card could be just an indicator that that thing has died off, that it is time to take refuge somewhere new, that it is done, and that you can't resurrect it, right? Because that can be, the traditional meaning of death in the tarot is like new beginnings, allowing the old to die so that the new can flourish. And that may be relevant whatever circumstance you're in. You may have been put in a new place for a higher purpose, etc. But what I want to say, if you did come for a more personal reading, or if this is particularly 7th house in terms of relationships, that is done. That chapter is over, right? Actually, I feel for all of you, this sort of death chapter is over. There is a new start. There is a promising future. But there is also something about that future which you're not meant to know yet. And when you're kind of cosmically not meant to know, it can go in a variety of directions. But, sometimes it can be because if you had that information, you would dread a future which is actually going to be better. Sometimes it can be that stuff's kept from you because nobody's meant to know, because there is a political tide that is about to turn, and that would be affected by a kind of mass consciousness around that thing. If it's much more individualistic, this could be you're not meant to know what's coming, because in seeking refuge, you or somebody in your care is going to have an exciting new beginning, meet a new person, have something positive happen. I always read the High Priestess as positive, even though it's secret. So I feel like whatever it is that you're not meant to see near future is being obfuscated for a good reason, and for a reason that is actually quite a pleasant surprise. But the obfuscation itself is what I'm being told to pick up on, which tells me that there is a part of you, perhaps, binging tarot readings, perhaps seeking multiple resources, turning to everyone around you, needing answers in a repeat way. And I'm being pulled to say to you that that process is not healthy. That seeking constantly outside yourself for what's going to happen next in this circumstance is not healthy. And instead, what you're being told to do, rather than take 10 million readings on what they will do next, or ask everybody you know whether they have anything in the way of resources for you and your child, or whatever it is actually to go, I cannot know the next step. I'm going to give that up to whatever you believe in for now. And changes may happen in an hour or tomorrow or whatever. We don't know when this kind of new thing is going to click in. But what I can tell you is that your mission for now is to seek refuge. Notice that we speak of refugees, but the word isn't refugee, it's refuge. It's the place, it's a description of where you are now. It's your confirmation, really, that this reading is telling you that whatever you've taken flight from, you are now in a safe place, and that being in the present in that place and thinking about what's available to you, and indeed what you can give out if you're able, is where you're meant to be right now. Not trying to read the future, not trying to see, for some of you, I'm hearing how many more will die, and I'm so sorry if that's your circumstance. But there is something here about you're not meant to be excavating this feeling of something ending. You're not meant to be predicting things, right? Whether that's through me or through other tarot readers or even yourself. Your job right now is to seek peace, to seek solace, to consolidate the areas that you can take refuge in, the resources that you do have, the food at your disposal, the clothes on your back, perhaps the money that you are blessed to be able to give to other people, if this is like a more philanthropic thing and you're in a good position, but you're just seeing this going on. And to just really sit with those energies in a place of, I am safe, right? Your affirmation at the moment is, I have sought refuge, I have gained refuge, I am safe. If you want to come back for any further detail, I want to say with this High Priestess figure being here, give it 2 of whatever unit you were thinking in. So when I first said if you want to come back, if you were thinking in hours, give it 2 hours. Then maybe check out the rest of my channel or check out someone else's work. If you thought days, this will turn around in a matter of days, give it 2 days before you try and check in on what might happen in the future. If it was weeks, give it 2 weeks. If this was trying to decide what an ex-partner is doing, or what a city you've left behind is doing, or something like that, it could even be years, you know? If it feels right to you, give it 2 years. But the number 2 is significant here. There may also be 2 of you, right? And you're being pulled in 2 directions here. But yeah, I want you to settle into that energy of, I have sought refuge, I have gained refuge, I am safe. And I think that when you do, you will feel calmer, the people around you will feel calmer if there is someone that relies upon you who is younger or perhaps less mature. And I think that you will very quickly see the path in front of you open up and open out, and that resources will be given to you. But it's a case of sitting in the energy of, it can sometimes feel safe not to know, not to try and mind read, not to try and future read, in order to get into a calmer space within yourself, right? That may be something that seems counterintuitive to come from a tarot reader, but honestly, sometimes the message in the card is, don't pull any more cards on it. And that seems to be what I'm getting for this group. So I really hope, whoever you are, whatever you're going through, and feel free to share if you want to. Lord knows we could use a sort of broader perspective, so comments are welcome. But whatever it is that you're going through, I hope you do find a safe place today, right now. Whether that safe place is a concept, whether it's a gratitude for another person, whether, as I say, it's a resource that you already have, or whether it's a hope that, as I say, things are about to get better for you, no matter how awful they may have been, okay? But I hope you can settle into that feeling of peace. I wish you peace. I wish you success. Take refuge. Be still, be calm. Try and get some sleep if you haven't been able to. And things are going to turn around in very unexpected ways. And with the death of any patterns that you did want to leave behind over here, and the beginning of something bright, new and wonderful. Take care, pal too. Pal C, my little Tweety Pie, this is your birdseed reading. I can't remember whether I said in the intro that that was what I was going to do, but it absolutely is. We've had a lot of readings at the moment that have had the birds in my neighbourhood featuring on the balcony, sort of rapping on the window or giving me messages in some other way. And then I've relayed that in my content for Utober. So if you're interested, I hasten to add, they don't appear on camera sadly, but if you're interested in those kinds of messages or you work with wildlife in your own personal practice, you might want to check out the Utober playlist and go to whatever readings you feel drawn to. But my way of giving back to that energy is to read for you today with birdseed and a few grubs or, dried things that they may enjoy, in order that while you're getting your reading, you put kind of loving intention, any questions that you have, any gratitudes that you want to say to spirit, to God, to whatever you identify with, into these bird seeds with your mind. If you kind of say a little prayer for the birds, right, or for the wider picture. And once I've done your reading based on the configuration of these seeds, we'll gather up the seeds, I'll return them to a communal pot for all the piles, and in the morning I'm going to feed this reading to the robins, to the pigeons, to the blue jays, to, well, it won't directly feed the red kite, but it may feed something that the red kite eats, to the blue tits, chaffinches, you name it. And all these beautiful birds that I get in my part of the world are going to be a way of taking that gratitude energy back into nature and spreading it out again in the great circle of life, as Mufasa would say. So that's the idea behind it being birdseed. If you like it, if you want to see more seed readings, hit me up in the comments. If you prefer other ways of divining, like the ink in water that we recently did, or anything else you can think of, let me know what you'd like to see and I'll absolutely incorporate that into these minis. Anyway, that was a long pre-ramble. Perhaps you've been in a long period of preparation. So let's check out what your seeds actually say, shall we? Some of you are on a weight loss journey, or there's something to do with bodily proportions coming in. For my people who picked tarot pile, how was it? No, it was, if you had two of these readings, if you were drawn to pile 2 as well for this, there was stuff about colour theory and sort of, excuse me, hiccups, confirmation that someone's watching too, thank you. If you were my colour theory person, this may be that you're also looking into things like your kibby type, your body shape, etc. But there's something here about body shape, body image, body weight, being on a health journey, being on a recovery journey, those kinds of things, because I'm seeing bodies in these images, right? And I think it's all positive. I think the message with that is just keep it up, keep going. If you were choosing between listening to this reading or having the bag of naughty snacks, then absolutely listen to this. Have a glass of water, enjoy whatever it is that comes up, and rethink the bag of temptation later, right? That might be why it's come up for you as well. But yeah, I think overall, that's just to say, if you're on a health journey or if there's something to do with body here, keep up whatever it is that you've been doing. It's just encouragement from spirit, basically. I'm getting like a thumbs up from Cooper in my head. What else are we seeing with all of this? There is a feminine face with long hair. What about them? I'm seeing somebody in a rocking chair, but they look a little too young to be rocking back and forth. They've got very long hair and a beautiful face. You may be sat in a rocking chair listening to this. Please confirm with me in the comments down below if that's you, because that would be rad to hear. But more broadly, I think this speaks to sitting in an older fashioned way of being, which drives your momentum, versus actually being quite young, like young at heart or young in appearance or just literally younger than your value system. So you may have been told by people that you're an old-fashioned soul, or you have old-fashioned ways of operating in a good sense, I'm sensing. Or if they've said it in a disparaging way, what I want to impart to you is that actually it's a good thing, right? That sometimes being a bit old-fashioned is a little kinder to your fellow man than operating in the current paradigm, shall we say. And if that doesn't hit, and it's to do with kind of getting messages from older people about where to go, and you feeling a bit like that's not how you self-motivate, that's not how your chair does rocking, right? Or indeed, for some of you I'm hearing that's not how you rock a baby to sleep. So if you came from the previous reading on tarot, this may be about a dependent of yours, and you're like looking to look after them in the best way, but you're receiving messages from the outer world that come from an older paradigm that you disagree with. And this is confirmation that, like, yes, do things your way. You are being nourishing to that young child or inner child even. Don't listen to the older bits of info coming your way from, you know, family, friends, people around you, whatever it is. There's just some kind of broad sense of the information that you're getting is well intended and intended to motivate you and propel you, but it's a bit old-fashioned and it doesn't fully apply to who you are. And with it being a rocking motion, it's like you start to motivate and then you retract back into some kind of old way, some kind of mindset, some kind of stuckness. So again, Pal 2 Tarot may be relevant in some way. And part of the reason for that is that the stuff that you've been looking to give you momentum is from a framework which doesn't apply to you specifically. The thing that I'm thinking of as an example, and it may hit if you've had one of my recent readings on here because we touched on similar stuff, is the kind of David Goggins, Tony Robbins, etc. brand of self-help that's about at the moment, which can be, I don't want to criminalize anybody here, but it can be very ableist, right? And it's not adaptable to all paradigms and all people. Some of us can't use those same techniques to get ourselves out of bed in the morning. Some of us, indeed, our main struggle is getting out of bed because of something entirely physiological, right? And that may relate to you, that may be the confirmation that you need. But if not, it's to say that if you've been seeking from other people for information or life stories or other forms of inspiration to give you momentum, to give you motivation, particularly in relation to the weight stuff we talked about, know that the way that they operate is not going to apply to you, right? You are a beautiful, unique, wondrous being who has your own nuances. And I think that while some of what these sources are saying is positive and useful and like, yeah, that makes a kind of common sense, not all of it is for you, because you are here with a very different life mission. You're here with slightly different circumstance. For some of you, you're very psychic, because my nose is so itchy right now, and the nose knows, right? And it hasn't done this for blimmin' ages, so I know it's quite strong energy. There is just something about the way that you've been seeking inspiration from others, you know, in whatever level of, whether you're desperate for that or whether you're not really too bothered, but it's just something you've been doing to pass the time. And these people or these influencers or these writers, these speakers, they've got some of it, but they're not you. They don't live in your body. They don't wake up with your circumstances every morning. And I'm hearing that really what you need to do is not just trust yourself, which I always say for this channel, but also seek out people who are more like you. Specifically for my disabled collective, this is a tarot channel run by a disabled person who was born that way, who has had multiple surgeries, who has had brain injuries, who has died on table, who has a prognosis of a shorter lifespan, who has physical limitations that affect everything, right? So if that message was hitting because you are one of my mutant collective, my differently abled gang, then you're in the right place here, right? And that's a confirmation as well that, like, if you're new, hi, I am invisibly disabled. I don't look like this is going on, but this might be a good place for you, because my sort of spiritual paradigm is not based on ableism. It's not based on being born into a kind of financial privilege either, because as we all know, disability and finance are not always bedfellows, right? If you're not in that group, I'm sorry for rambling on about personal circumstance, but it's to demonstrate that, like, you might want to hone in on a group that you are a member of that is like a niche lifestyle, a niche interest, something that's quite unique to you. And you might want to look to those kinds of people for the information that you've been getting more broadly from your Oprahs and your Tony Robbinses and your 4-hour work weeks or whatever, because it's not all relevant, or it is relevant but it's not applicable for you. And I want you to really treat yourself preciously, and to sort of, I don't want there to be, I'm hearing excuses and entitlement, so I don't want you to fall into a thing where, and I'd, over a decade of doing this, so it's not shade. I don't want you to fall into a thing where you are so unique that you tell yourself that nothing applies to you and that you don't need to step up in areas which you are responsible for, right? That's an important message too. But what I do want to say is that your set of circumstances and the things that have made you you, if you're hitting this pile, are very, they are very unique. They're very different, particularly in the environment that you're currently in, right? Especially if you came from Tarot Pile 2, right? And that needs its own kind of delicacy and care, and attention needs to be paid to not just what is inspiring for you to do, but what you can do with the resources available, and what you are best at doing, what it is even that you are more gifted at doing because you couldn't take things the same route as everyone else did. Yeah? Okay, I think that's like that message summed up, so we'll get on to another subject, but I hope that bit was useful and made sense. For some of you, you've had a period of, what do I want to call it? It's very 12th house. It's like a period of entrapment, institutionalization, confinement, quarantine, having to spend time in an embassy for some of you, I'm hearing. But there's a restriction of freedom of movement, and I feel that you're coming to this reading at a time where you're crawling out of whatever place you were trapped in. And I do feel it's a place, even if it's as simple as like you were in a school that you hated. Please be over 18 on this channel, but clearly it's relevant to you. Or you were in a town or a marriage, or, but there's something where you were trapped specifically. It's not the same message as Tarot Pile 2, where you were taking refuge from something, spoilers. It's more that you literally couldn't leave a place or a room, or maybe it's just that you've come to this tarot reading like after you were sat in a lecture or sat at work or something, and you had to wait to be able to get out to watch it. I mean, thank you for building me up in that way and looking forward to the reading. I look forward to reading for you too. But it's something like that where it's like you were fixed in place and now you're crawling out. And the crawling motion is making its way towards your career, really. So whatever it is that you've moved away from is going to be beneficial to the way you make money. And having just spoken about ableism, I don't even want to be so ableist that I presume that all of us can have a career or that all of us can earn money. But there's something, if it's not that's about your mission, your broader purpose, the kinds of input you can disseminate to other people in order to have a legacy in this lifetime, whatever you feel that is, it's very 10th house, right? It's a movement towards a broader goal, but for many of you, I will say it is career. And it could only happen after you freed yourself from whatever this period of entrapment was. Not because of the entrapment. It's not everything makes sense now because of that. It's more that you literally weren't free to pursue this thing until you freed yourself of your bonds. So that's confirmation for you. And it's also to say that if you've recently been liberated from a specific circumstance or place and you have no sense of direction in what you're going to do next or where you're going to go, the place to put your attention at the moment is your career. And I want to say career rather than work life, because in this sort of vaguely astrological spread that I'm semi-using, work as in the work you do, the duty you have, the, maybe a temporary job that you take on, wouldn't be appearing in the place that I'm thinking here. It would be somewhere else. So this is career in a legacy sense rather than work in a mundane day-to-day sense. It's not focusing on the small scale things of looking for a job. It's more like focusing on the large scale thing of the training you can do for the thing you want to do overall, or the professional setting you want to be in as an end game or something like that. And again, if you're unable to work, this is like, where do you see yourself in terms of what you represent to other people? What would you like to embody for others in your time on this earth, however long or short that is? And that's where to put your focus. Now I'm hearing for some you've escaped the escape room, so you might be watching this after an escape room or something, but it's like you've been let out, the shutters have come up, and now you're free to do whatever, and it's almost intimidating to you. And I want to say, put your attention on the long-term legacy, on the long-term goals. And in that sense, the short-term stuff will figure itself out in terms of like working backwards from where you want to be, ideally. That may even be the useful component of what these motivational speakers or whoever it is you've been going to have been saying, right? Is working backwards from the why, from the end goal. But I feel that there are other components of what they've been advising that are not just not beneficial for you to apply, but are actively harmful because they are things that you can't keep up with financially, physically, spiritually, whatever it is. And I think you need to allow yourself time to adapt things to you, whilst also keeping your eye on the prize symbolised by this particular seed. So if you want to put your wishes for the future in that one, I'm sure somebody will eat it tomorrow and disseminate it back out to the gods, right? Okay, there's also something here like an arrow whizzing in, rushing in. I want to call it communication coming in. It's almost a tarot cliche at this point, but if you see this line of seeds here sort of whizzing into the reading from the outside, it's like a flying arrow. So whether this is you being set on your goal, someone else being set on the same goal perhaps, that you could form an alliance with or something like that, or whether this is just communication coming in from another sphere. I'm noticing also it's aiming towards where I drew a heart when I wrote tweet, tweet, right? So, excuse me, confirmation for some of you, if you've been wanting to hear from a love interest, that's coming in at rapid speed. This is your equivalent of an 8 of Wands card, right? This is your saying, yes, expect that communication to happen. I want to say within 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days or weeks, whatever is more appropriate to your circumstance. So if you're in years of no contact, it might be weeks. But if you just haven't heard from them for a couple of days, we might be talking hours. Who knows? Let me know in the comments if that happens and you come back around to this reading. I'd love to know like that we got a timing thing from something like this, because I never really read timings when I do non-card divination, but it's interesting that it came up really specifically. There is also something trying to intercept this communication. You see the grub here moving this way, trying to stop the arrows, but I don't know whether you can tell. The rate the arrow is flying and the rate that this thing is moving, they're not going to coincide. So there's something or someone, if this is a love thing or a relationship related thing, friends, family, and there is a communication being intercepted here, it's almost like the person trying to delay this or prevent this or whatever is going to be too much of a slowpoke to actually stop it in its tracks. They're going to be too systematic in their approach, to the point where, because these arrows are shot off with relative impulsivity, they're actually not going to interrupt it. But I think the reason it's coming in is for you to be aware that someone's trying to, right? Whether that's a third party, if you already know, or if you're not aware of anything like that and it's just like somebody in your life doesn't want your best happiness, or someone perhaps even wants to warn you about the root of this arrow, the sender of this communication. But there's something about it's not going to get there, but you need to know that it's trying to interrupt it all. Okay, what else? I've seen a monkey. There is monkey business going on, and now I'm hearing Tarzan Boy by, I forget his name, the Italian singer that's a little bit naff, but we love him. So there may be something relevant to do with that, to do with Tarzan, to do with that kind of archetype, or to do with monkey business that's relevant to this whole thing. What do we want to say about... that's interesting. So the monkey is not obviously doing like a see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil thing. But I felt that it was along those lines. So I said, well, which is it? And there's a seed going into his head. I don't know whether you can see here, the sort of monkey face. And it's no evil, which tells me that this is my affirmation gang, and that's something you've been repeating to yourself as a statement about the circumstance, or about how it's going to turn out, or how the world works, or how people work, is not a positive thing to know, or a positive thing to keep affirming, even if it was something that you once knew for sure. What I mean by that is that if you've got your heart set or your eye set on a certain goal, be it love, career, whatever, and you are constantly talking or complaining about how things don't operate in a way that would contribute positively to that goal, or to the kind of life you would need to get to it, then stop affirming those things. Stop complaining about those things in the world. It doesn't mean you have to deny what's going on for you. It doesn't mean you have to just take mistreatment and pretend that it's not going on. But what I want to say is, don't perpetuate the cycle of a particular injustice by speaking about it all the time, or by talking about how the world is a cruel place or a terrible place, or how all men are this or all women are that, or how you're never going to get to your particular career from where you started. Because my dude, if you repeat an affirmation often enough, it contributes to your reality. Do you want to contribute to the reality where those things are true? Or do you want to instead affirm for, actually, you know what? I used to think that all men behave this way, but in my recent experiences and in my daydreams about what it is that I desire, I'm learning that actually sometimes they operate like this. Or I used to think that the world was a cruel and terrible place, perhaps even because of what I've seen happen around me, if you came from Pile 2. And that is a completely justified thought based on my prior experiences. But now I am prepared to accept the thought that the world is also loving, that people are also good, that God, if you believe in something like that, has my best interests at heart and is also good, right? So it's not even just what are you speaking, but what are you continually thinking over these things? And how can you break the pattern? Not by affirming something you don't yet believe. We're not going to whitewash over stuff here. I'm not up for that on this channel. But by instead saying, okay, I might not feel like this right now, that it can all work out, but I'm ready to begin to feel that it can all work out. Or as Dylan James would say, I'm beginning to know, or beginning to imagine, or beginning to see that such and such, you know? If an affirmation is really uncomfortable for you, I am beginning to believe that, and then the affirmation is a nice way to ease yourself in. Because you're not saying XYZ is true. You're saying, you know what? I'm so sick of the old baggage. I am willing to drop it and be the sort of person who believes that this other outcome is something that I can get to. And that's reasonable. Your logical brain cannot argue with, I am willing to begin to believe this thing. Because it's not saying this is the truth. It's in a way that the logical mind can argue with by saying, well, we grew up in this, or we have this body, or we're from this war zone, or we've always had this experience with men or women or whatever. If you say, I am willing to believe that the world is a better place, all you're arguing with from the logical brain is a willingness to believe. And that's not really something you can argue with. So I think, as I say, I did get that from Dylan James. Check out his channel if you haven't. But I think that's a really nifty affirmation technique if you can't quite get into, I think the opposite of what I used to think. If that feels uncomfortable in your body and you're not ready for it, then don't pretend to believe something you don't. Just affirm that you're willing to take on a new belief and see what opens up for you as a result. Is there anything else for this pile? I don't think there is. Oh no, there is one thing. There's a, where is this? Oh, okay. In terms of your house of resources, and this will hit particularly for people in Tarot Pile 2, although it's not for everyone. If you felt drawn to something else, go to that. There is a fetal resource, because this from my angle looks like a fetus, this seed here, which is winging its way to you. It is outside of the realm of your immediate experience for the moment, but it is on its way. So if you were in a resources or responsibility type reading and you wanted something to come in for you, this is your affirmation from the universe that it's absolutely on its way. It's just that it's not quite here yet. It's fetal. It's in the growing stages. Another message with that is that if you're not wanting to conceive at the moment and you're sexually active with someone of the opposite sex, then please be careful, right? Because there could be a literal fetus winging its way into your experience. And for some of you, that warrants a congratulations. But for anyone not trying to conceive, it's just a heads up, okay? I think that's everything. Yeah. So please like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly. Check out any tarot you feel drawn to from this same reading. Check out the Marseille Minis playlist where I do other forms of divination with a similar sort of setup. And you need any of the playlists on my channel. There is a lucky dip of the entire channel if you know you want another reading from me but you haven't a clue what to ask or what to look for. Maybe click on that and click shuffle at the top of it and we'll guide you to whatever you need. I'm going to leave you a couple of seconds just to put your intentions into this, your gratitude for the reading. And excellent, thank you very much. We will feed this to the birds tomorrow. Your wonderful positive energies will go back into the earth in some way. And hopefully I will see you in either your extra pile for this reading or in another reading. Take care, my dude. All right, for my final tarot pile, hello and welcome. R is for revenge. What a different story to the other two piles, I will say, without giving away anything. Let's grab your set aside Marseilles. Oh, we haven't got a house. Let's get a house. Second house. So something here is about your values, your value system, or what you have materially. Perhaps a financial revenge. Let's see, shall we? If it's not hitting yet, just know that this is a general reading for a large audience. There will be all kinds of interpretations based on what I'm saying. Take what resonates for you, leave the rest for somebody else, and enter and leave with a spirit of kindness, even if we're talking about something like revenge. Bottom of the deck is the devil, and I was called to pull that before I turn anything over. So careful not to get tempted into an antagonistic energy, my dudes. Particularly if you're feeling vengeancey. Also, I want to say, if you are feeling vengeancey and you're looking for cathartic stuff, I've been watching The Glory on Netflix, and I'm not one for K-drama, but by God is it satisfying. So that might be one for you as well. Okay, so we have a 7 of Cups reversed, a Lovers in the upright, a 4 of Cups reversed, a 9 of Cups, and a... come on, brain. A 10 of Wands. Sorry. I'm just going to think these over, have a quick meditate. There will be a quick cut which you won't feel, and then we'll be back to talk about revenge. All right, pal 3. I think you're my love reading. There's always one, right? Pal 2 had a bit of, it could have been some kind of circumstance that brought you to that, but pal 3 has definitely given me the energy of, I want to say a woman spurned, but it could be an anyone spurned. You fill in the gender as you see fit. As I said, as we pulled the shuffle, this is second house. So this is talking about what your core values are. This is perhaps learning what your core values are over time. A situation that tells you what it is you value, believe, want to have at the end of all this. Want other people to have as a result of their actions. Be careful of that one in a vengeancey mode. And indeed what your material assets and resources are. It's an interesting one because all 3 piles actually seem to have been about R is for resources in one way or another, but we've never picked that out of the hat. So it's like, if I could call all 6 readings one thing, that would be it. But specifically focusing on revenge, I'm going to speak about it as if this is you wanting to seek revenge because of a situation, but you could be one of any number of other people in this situation and you're cross-watching, so I'm up for that as well, right? Just take it as you see fit. What I do want to say before we get into it is that this is not what it seems in terms of the message, and I don't want you to be mad at me, so just be prepared for anything as we go forward, okay? So the thing that leapt out to me straight away in the meditation was that we've got a 7 of Cups in reverse, which is sometimes being overwhelmed with options. Now, don't get snippy about another person yet. This is also related to you. Sometimes imagining too many different outcomes, too many different scenarios. It can be a spirit of strategy, kind of gone wild into fantasy. It can be the dream life, getting a little ahead of the real life in some way. And then that's sort of looping over the reading in what I call the rainbow. But then the undercurrent energy, going back to complete the circle, is also one of overwhelm, because we've got a 10 of Wands. So this is about carrying too much, not being able to see where you're going, being in a particularly combative mode, having too many creative projects going on at once. Also in terms of strategy, right? This is almost, I don't want to demonize you when I say this, or distance you or alienate you from my channel, but excuse me, confirmation, so I should say it. It's like an Amy Dunn Gone Girl energy, but if Amy Dunn wasn't as organised, or if she had so many options that she wasn't quite as strategic a personality. And I want to say, I mean, I probably spoiled it a bit by saying that, but if you haven't seen that film or read that book, and you are interested in revenge as a concept, or feeling a bit like you need a bit of catharsis, by God, is it good? Good material. The film by David Fincher is excellent, wonderfully acted and executed, but also the book can be a source of firing you up, and I don't mean that in a negative, thou must seek revenge whilst listening way, but you know, if you are spurned in some fashion, for me, I first listened to the audiobook of that, working out when someone had really fucked me over, and it helped so much, man. It's not that I over-identified with anybody, it's not that I want to be bad to anyone or take revenge, but just as a cathartic exercise. It was in lockdown, I was trapped in a room and I had a stepper, and I used to do my aerobic stepping and sort of other related things whilst listening to Gone Girl, and I cannot recommend that highly enough. Anyway, aside from that, that's just like a extra tidbit for those who need that. I feel almost that you want to, this is a difficult thing to say, you want to exact revenge on someone, or someone wants to on you if it's a cross-watching, because of some kind of third or even fourth party situation, because there is, it's a non-traditional lovers card, so I'm getting polyamory for some of you. But it's almost like the person wanting to seek revenge in this context is too overwhelmed by the ways they could do that, or the ways of accessing a person, I'm hearing, to be able to do it. I'm really not liking this energy, if I'm fully honest with you guys. So if this is yours, I want you to really think about where it's coming from, whether there are broader issues playing into how angry you feel, whether you need to do a cleansing, a salt bath, whether you need to, listen to some subliminals that are a bit healthier, or doing whatever it is that you do at your end. But it's not nice. And what I want to say is that it's also not proportionate. And if we're thinking about things like revenge, proportionality is important. More on that when we get into the nature of this relationship. But what I want to say straight off is that I don't like this. It's not going to do you any good spiritually. And I'm not a turn the other cheek person neither. See my enemies reading for more nuance. But this is particularly a kind of malignant energy. And I want to say malingering. It's like lingering over your life, their life, the lives of everyone involved in a sort of cloudy, foggy way that's perhaps obfuscating the truth of the matter. It's just not nice, and it's not what this situation deserves as well. And I know I'm preaching to the converted if it's in fact that someone wants to take revenge on you, and you'll know if that's the case because you'll already know what's coming. But if it is you feeling angry at a person, wanting to maybe, even in a cosmic sense, wanting to see that they get their cosmic justice, their karma in the appropriate version of the term, their comeuppance, I don't think that's a very healthy energy to sit in right now. And I want to encourage you to find ways to seek catharsis that are not about actively harming or wishing harm upon another person, which may be why I had to talk about the glory and Gone Girl and useful stuff for getting that energy out if you feel very angry, in a healthier way, right? Workouts may also be relevant, particularly if you also resonated with the Birdseed reading for this pile, or you were like in two minds as to whether to choose it, because there's stuff in there about working out, being on a health journey, body weight, etc. Okay, so there was a situation where you were interested in someone, they were interested right back. Someone else was interested in them, they were interested right back. There may even be third, fourth, fifth, seventh, 20th parties in this. And I don't necessarily think that you had an altogether clear slate yourself. There may have been people that you were interested in at the time and you just didn't take them up on it. Or there may have been people actively giving you offerings and you were just not quite giving them the signal of this is a full no to show your interest in another person, because you were trying to see where you were with that other person. You were trying to see whether they were interested back in you. So there's an interesting mirror of the energy in that I'm saying you, again, take it as it is. You were angry at this other person that you were involved with because they didn't make you their priority, or because they were seeing other people, talking to other people, sleeping with other people, returning to exes, you name it. But actually you weren't necessarily being clear with the people around you either, because you had this person kind of in reserve, but you were so scared by the idea they'd go off with someone else that you wanted to have, this is why it's dodgy energy, you wanted to have a fallback yourself. So you didn't want to tell other people completely no at your end, and yet you are penalising another person for not saying no at their end. And yes, I don't want to trigger anyone. It's like, it may not be proportionate, right? You may have had someone ask you out for a date and you weren't fully clear on why you said no, versus this other person has slept with 70 people whilst claiming to be your partner, or claiming that they were in love with you whilst getting back with an ex, or something like that, right? So it's not to say that those two situations that are mirrored are proportionately the same, or that you don't have a right to feel angry. But what I am saying is, you're not coming from a pure as the driven snow place yourself. And that's something to bear in mind when we're in vengeance energy, is how clear is your conscience? Something about that sort of the Glory versus Amy Dunn thing, and I don't want to give away too much about either, but one of those vengeance-seeking characters is someone who is entirely innocent up to the point of the thing that made them want to take revenge. And the other of those characters is someone who has arguably always had a Machiavellian or revenge-seeking personality, for whatever reason, possibly involving childhood trauma. So you have two people who are in a vengeance mode, in the examples that I used, that are coming from different places to illustrate that you can do this innocently, or you can do it and actually your track record isn't that great. And my dude, I love you. Please stay with me on the channel. This reading will make sense in a kind of way. But if you're listening to it and you are seeking vengeance, you're a person whose track record is not clear, right? You're not coming from, I was completely innocent and this situation was unprecedented and there were no red flags and my conscience was clear and no one was confused at my end. You might be coming in from, well, they did worse, but there is some kind of thing here where it's like there's been a mixed signal, or you've had ill intention or subterfusion intention from the beginning, and that's made things worse. And that has contributed to this. Again, not saying it was right, just saying that the less communication there is in the situation, the more likely it is that someone who's already going to do something bad does something bad, right? And that's something to bear in mind at your end as well. And possibly why I'm communicating in a brutal and upfront way with you now about yourself is to prevent something bad. Because I think if you go into full revenge mode, even in just like a sort of petty, relatively harmless way, with your thoughts, with your intention, particularly on a spiritual channel where people do prayers or they do magic or they intend at stuff, you being in that energy of, I want to say, grottiness towards this other person, you might do more harm than you fucking think. And I want to say, don't do it. I noticed that this Cupid figure here is looking to the rest of the reading more than to the things that are going on. It's almost like the eye of I don't want to say fate because not all of you believe in it, but the eye of whatever you believe to be the source of these messages, is on the future rather than on you guys, because you guys are at the level right now of petty squabbles. There may be a thing of like, this person imitated this person blocked this person unblocked this person ghosted this person. Not just between you and whoever this is concerning, but in the whole fucking triangle, quadrangle, dodecahedron, or web that is woven here. And there's like a sense from spirit of like, it's not you're all as bad as each other, but it's almost like none of you is whiter than white. And sorry for the problematic term, but it's the only way I can phrase that. So this needs to be kinder or more conscious from your end, right? You are the person coming in, not just seeking revenge, but with the potential to listen to a tarot reader on this and say, yeah, you know what, maybe my reaction has been disproportionate, or it's come from something else, or even if it is proportionate, maybe I could cause more harm than good by going down this path. So it's not the right time for me to approach this or address this. It's a good news thing if you are the person receiving this to you, right? Because it's almost like you are the one who can intervene in this before it gets bad. But if you're not that person, if you're not the revenge seeker and you're hearing this message, by virtue of being the person hearing it, the sort of spiritual person in the situation, or someone within, individuals who could all be spiritual, but you are conscious in a way that you're ready for this, you're the person who can see this pattern from a distance and be like, right, I'm not going to act in the way I was acting anymore. I'm going to interrupt this. There is a pattern interrupt, definitely, whoever you are in this. With the Four of Pentacles, the revenge-seeking person, their anger comes from not the betrayal of another involvement, but the withdrawal of energy from them. It's like, I'm hearing Got No Love in my head, the Average White Band song. So it's like, they're not even that mad that someone fell for someone else, or that there was an encounter which was regretted or whatever. They're mad that that person wasn't giving back to them. Pentacles are always about reciprocity, where they're not directly about money, and particularly with 4, and with the withholding energy of a reversal and the withholding energy of a 4 of Pentacles. It's like, if you're the person seeking revenge, what you're pissed about is not just like who they went off with, whatever they did, because that you can kind of all cope with, and you can say, well, people are shit sometimes. What you're pissed about is, I thought we had a thing here. I thought we understood each other. Or I thought we were aiming in the same direction, the same long-term direction for some of you, because it's Pentacles, right? It's about legacy. So maybe you saw a real future with this person, and then they went off and did whatever. And that's why you're like in a revenge-seeking space, if that's not always you, because it was a big deal to you. Excuse me. Confirmation. I'm finding that it's hard to speak, so I do feel this is very emotionally charged for you, whether or not you're the person wanting revenge. What I want to say that's interesting about this 4 of Pentacles, particularly with the 7 of Swords popping in, 7 of Cups even, popping into the reading in any way whatsoever. 7 of Cups is lots of options. It can often be a very single energy, a bachelor energy or a bachelorette. It can be someone who receives a lot of attention and just can't possibly pick who they want to sleep with next. And with that and this saying that the problem was the lack of attention, the scenario that came through in the meditation is that for some of you, you weren't even in a relationship with this person, and yet you're on a revenge warpath. They weren't yours, but you're just mad that they took up other options. And I want to say, with the emphasis on proportion that we talked about earlier, make your reaction proportionate to somebody who may not even have been in a commitment. And yes, it's shitty the way that reality and society works at the minute, particularly with porn culture. And sometimes never formally agreeing on a commitment is also a strategy by someone who just wants to sleep around, or just wants to have their cake and eat it too, or whatever it is. And that can be very annoying to come up against when you're someone who gives another person grace to be vague, based on what seems to be a very, strong connection. And then you find that actually in that vagueness, they were sort of coming back with an energy of, well, I'm with this person now, but I owe you nothing, because it never was a thing. I accept, particularly from personal experience, that can be very hurtful. So I'm not saying that it's not justified to feel ways about stuff. What I am saying is that if you weren't ever committed to this person, and you start to try to take revenge on them, or on someone they're currently with, or on someone else peripheral that was involved, it's going to make you look petty. It's going to make you look bad, because it was never a thing, right? And they can turn around and say, well, I owed this person nothing. We were never together, or we were never official, or we weren't married. We were just going out, or whatever it is, So be careful of that. Not just be careful of this energy, because it's not good for you, it's not good for them, it's not good for anyone involved, and it could cause more harm than you intend to you as well. But also, be real with yourself about whether you were expecting partner benefits from someone who wasn't a partner, or whether you presumed faithfulness or monogamy from somebody who never had a conversation with you about being monogamous. Or, if this is an energy of a connection that you come back into and out of and have done a few times, okay, but the last time round, did they say you were together? Did you say you were together? What was it? And I don't mean that to trigger you, because I know it's hard looking back over this sort of stuff and admitting to it, but if there's ever a place where somebody who wants to have all their privileges without reciprocity, then those sorts of people tend to be the same kinds of people who will cite, I want to say, statistical circumstance or like fixed circumstance, and what exactly people said, what exactly people did, and the wording people used, and where they were at 10 p.m. on this Friday, in order to come back to someone who is emotionally quite rightly upset and say, oh, well, you know, it was never a thing, and it's preposterous, right? So if you're dealing with someone that you think has been shady, even more important to make sure that your justification for this is something that is provably the case, or is something which everybody would agree upon. Like, even in terms of a third party kind of energy, would they say that you guys were in a relationship, and would they feel guilt and therefore wrongdoing? Or would they have come in and maybe been told that you guys weren't together and believed that because you kind of weren't, and then they've gone about the merry way and done whatever, whether they're a good or bad person? Because I've had this with someone that is objectively, provably a shitty person, who was lying to the person I was involved with, and for my knowledge still is. But it's like, really, because there wasn't enough of an agreement between me and this other person, they would have a perfect right to say, well, I was just trying to be kind, even if they're not kind, right? I hope this is making sense. But it's like, with these 3 cards starting out, I want you to be very careful, not just of what it is that you intend from a spiritual perspective and why you feel entitled to certain things and why, but also on a very practical level, like, how's this going to affect everyone involved? What can they say back to you? And why is there this situation where spirit seems to see it as petty squabblings between people on the same ground level, right? Be truthful with yourself. In what ways are you on a level with these people? In terms of lack of communication, in terms of not being so innocent, in terms of, you know, wishing on them what they've perhaps demonstrably wished upon you. If there's a third party who, you know, like mine was, is particularly problematic and aggravated and sort of doing underhanded things to trigger. Moving forward, out of that energy, thank God. 9 of Cups is interesting because it speaks to an energy that is very single, very happy, very self-sufficient. It's often the person in the tarot who chooses to be single, and who thrives in that, even if it wasn't originally their choice, and who becomes very sort of opulent and very pleased with their life, who has a lot of gratitude. It can be a card of gratitude. What I'm getting from this, and again, don't come for me, is if all this is resonating and it's like, yeah, this revenge path is possibly something I should play out in a sort of catharsis way, not in a psychic intention or a real intention. This all had to happen for you, if you are the revenge person, to be in your 9 of Cups, to be in an energy that was independent rather than codependent, that was self-sufficient rather than entitled, that was grateful rather than entitled, and that was understanding of all people involved, but separate from this situation, in a conscious step back, rather than coming to the understanding from a meticulous place where it's hypervigilant and you're very much embroiled in it and you're on the same level and you're in with them, right? There's a feeling with this 9 of separation, distancing from what this was. And if I'm giving you some information here which is new, and I hope I'm really not if we're talking third party stuff, but if any of it pings off like that and gives you a bad feeling, what I want to say is, rather than go deeper into exploring what truly happened between who, particularly with the exploration of the third party, if you're not the vengeance person, if you're another person, and you're now with someone thinking, oh shit, what did they do? I would encourage you in a way not to explore that too much, unless you feel it's for your safety to do so. And instead to be like, as the person who's received this reading and as this 9 of Pentacles, it is my job to step back now and say, you know what, it doesn't fucking matter what everybody did. What matters is the energy we move forward with, and that it's not petty revenge, and that it's not causing greater harm, and that it's not involving people with each other who, in the end, if you resonate with the misappropriation of the term karmic, are karmics, right? Even if you're coming to this because you feel that your counterpart is this person you were involved with and you want to seek revenge on them or on another person because you feel that it's a deep injustice, that something came between you and your counterpart, and again, it's a feeling I felt, so I'm not coming to this to comfort you. I want you to say, if this is meant to be, then what will bring it about is me being spiritual high ground. Even when it stings, to say, fine, get on with it. You guys do what you need to do. You may even go from a position of praying for people to be split apart or doing spell work against people or whatever it is that you do when you feel vengeancey, to doing what I instead decided after a long time of journaling to do, and to say, if these people are meant to be around each other, let nothing tear them apart. Let them be together until they learn exactly what they need to know. Let them marry each other if they need to marry each other. Let them have babies if they need to have babies, if that's appropriate for your gender attraction, right? Pray for their welfare, not for their downfall. Because if they're not meant for each other, all you've done in praying for the welfare of that relationship is accelerate it to the point where they realise they fucking hate each other. It's not exactly a well-wishing. It's still in the ballpark of revenge, but you can see how psychically it feels better than I'm going to think curse thoughts about one or both of these people. And I do also think that in the long run, if this is a counterpart thing and you want to reunite, you don't want to do that from a space of still being mad. You want to do that from a space of, oh, it's the return of my person who I love. It makes me feel deep relief. And you kind of can't do that if you're constantly cursing someone that they chose, right? And I've done a recent reading on this. Like, if I'm uploading at the right time, it's literally yesterday, so check it out. But, you know, like whatever they are doing with themselves now, sending them dodgy energy about that is just you resisting their energy in the whole, right? Because they need to go through that process for whatever reason. They need to be tempted. They need to be even sex addicted for some of you, for some reason, right? And to move through it and beyond. So wishing something horrible upon them for doing what it is that they're doing in terms of their own destiny, it's not just shitty to them, it's going to backfire on you. Whereas wishing that that goes exactly where it's meant to go for them, right? Yeah, it might be a bit passive aggressive if you know deep in your heart or loins that actually where it's going to go is that they end up hating any third parties and running to you. But it's a kind of thing to think on your own body, on their body, on the third party person who may be relatively innocent, we don't know. It's a sweeter spirituality energy to be in, to say, let this run its course with the will that was already intended, and I will do my thing. And it's also, if they ever do spiral back round, if you even want them to, many of you don't, but this is for those who do, it's a more attractive energy for you to be in. You know what, I'm just so busy, I'm so focused on being splendid, I didn't notice. Oh, hi, you're at my door, I didn't notice. Welcome, come in. Because that's probably not what they're expecting to get from you, right? They're probably expecting a conversation where you drag them through the shit of what they've done for the last, you know, weeks, months, years, and give them a good talking to, and then they have to beg and convince you. And actually having somebody answer the metaphorical door to them and say, oh, hey, I was just thinking about you. Come in. Do you want a coffee? I've been doing some really exciting stuff at work. Do you want to see? Or I saw that friend of ours a few weeks back. I was thinking about you. What a difference. What a complete contrast to come to, right? That's not to say that you will have forgiven everything and you'll be able to be calm about everything and that no part of any eventual conversation will trigger you. That's not even what we're aiming for necessarily, because the process needs to be as slow as it needs to be. But what I'm saying is that if you were this person, would you feel worse about doing this to someone who seeks revenge? Bullet dodged, right? Or would you feel worse about doing it to someone who in the end is your counterpart and who seems to be doing really well for themselves? Shit! Did I make a mistake? And to take it less vengeancey than that, less angry at them and guilt-inducing than that, because that is still shadowy energy, and to instead think spiritually and think about counterparts coming into union, if you were this person, would you want to go to the door of someone who is still angry and vengeancey? Or would you want to go to the door of someone who was saying, hey, that whole time that you went through this crazy situation and worked on yourself, I was working on me too. Let's compare notes on what we found. Let's enjoy where we've come to together. Let's be in this appreciative 9 of Cups energy of indulgence together. You know? Like they say, the best revenge is a glow up or is an improvement. The best revenge is success, sorry. 9 of Cups is success, right? It's like the 9 of Pentacles, but it's also like a wish fulfilled about the self. And I was reading this as very 9 of Pentacles, right? Particularly because of this deck. But the kind of, you know, if you go back to the Smith Way, the 9 of Cups is indulgence. It's being very Taurian in the light. It's like Moon in Taurus energy. It's very like, lay with me and let's eat grapes and talk about the things that we most love in the world. And isn't that such an attractive prospect compared to, we can come in but I'm not happy with you, you're a fuckhead. You know? It's a difference in energies. And again, this person doesn't have to be healed to be in that 9 of Pentacles or 9 of Cups vibe. They just have to be past the point of healthy cathartic behaviour enough, you know, working out, watching vengeance movies, doing all of that kind of getting on with your own work and being motivated by this stuff, and into a new sort of crossing into a new threshold where they're happy with their life, where they're feeling grateful, where they want to share their cup with other people, where it's a party atmosphere, which is also very 9 of Cups, and they're just going, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. How are you? Wow. Right? And in that sense, revenge, the best, success is the best revenge. Sorry, words. Because like the two outcomes here are you kind of glow up with this situation and you get your bad feelings out and you concentrate on yourself, and you get, you know, prettier, happier, wealthier, more luxurious in the way that you live. You have a stronger social circle, you know, and on and on. Or you stay in where you've sort of began at this reading and you focus entirely on what other people are doing that's completely out of your control. Spirit sort of dismisses it because they're looking to the future and you're still in petty squabbles. And you may cause more damage to people you genuinely did love at one point or care about at one point than even you anticipated by going on this journey of revenge. So you tell me, pal 3, what will it be? Are you going to end up in this overwhelmed undercurrent energy? Or are you going to end up going from a 7 of Cups of having lots of choices into a 9 of Cups of a wish fulfilled, a self actualized that could only have come into full main character energy by going through this horrible experience? Because even if they never come back, or even if you never want them back, being better in every facet of your life, in all 9 cups, is still a nicer energy, isn't it? Would you rather be consumed with success, or would you rather be consumed with other forms of revenge? Where do your values lie with the second house? If this was useful to you, please like, please subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly. I'm a tiny channel. I've been reading for many years for people, usually in person, but occasionally online. There is a link to my shop in the description if you want more specific readings or readings on other topics. But the big thing I want to say to you is that if you haven't shared this channel or subscribed and you enjoyed this or got to this point, please spread me around, because I would like for this YouTube to mean that my work is mainly digital and therefore broadly global, right? Rather than working just in the locale that I'm in and doing face-to-face work, which is quite physically draining and I have physical problems. So if you can help me out with a subscription, it just takes a click and I really appreciate it. I also appreciate your time and energy today, and the fact that you've had a bit of me putting you on blast in some ways, and you've taken it with dignity, and you've understood, hopefully, what I've been saying, and you've chosen, hopefully, the path of the Jedi and not the Sith, right? But if it did resonate, let me know to the extent that you feel comfortable in the comments, and I hope to see you in the next one, or indeed in another place on the channel. Take care, pal 3.